Elke, then Ouden. You have the floor.
Thank you. Yeah, we have less illegal stuff in our presentation, but we try to focus on smart cities from the perspective of smart lighting, which could also be an enabler for the city or an infrastructure for smart solutions in the city. And I will talk about how we co-create visions and roadmaps with the different stakeholders, and we use the case of the city of Eindhoven. Actually, my presentation will be followed up by the one of Rianne, who will focus more on the details of how we do need finding in the living lab. So that's the second part, that's why it's gray. I will focus on what's going on in public lighting and why that is interesting for smart cities. And I'll show you how we co-created the vision and the roadmap for Eindhoven, and how that also leads into a different procurement process, and how data is involved in there, of course. What's going on in public lighting? I think most of you have seen that there is now a strong change from the traditional sources to LED lighting, and that started already some time ago, but it is now basically useful and usable for most of the replacement for most of the lights, also for street lighting, which needs high intensity. And the main advantage is, of course, that it is much more lumen per watt, so it's energy efficient. That's one thing. The other thing is LED is more of a computer technology that you can easily integrate into smart sensor networks, which you couldn't do as easy with the previous sources. So next to just improving sustainability by reduction of energy use and light pollution, you can also come up with lots of smarter solutions where you use this integration in sensor networks, and then have services that have more added value, like increased personal safety, comfort, hospitality, basically things that are stepping stones towards smart city solutions. So if you look into smart cities, then the way it's been approached by industry and how cities have been approached by industry is that there's lots of visions on how technology can make the city smarter. If you Google, you will find pictures of this from any company, IBM or Cisco, it doesn't matter. They all focus on the technology. The city of the future is smart and connected, and they have all the technology for that. Where we got scared when seeing these pictures is that there's no people there. And we feel that we do this for people in the city. So how are we going to use this technology to improve quality of life? How will it serve the needs of people, and what services will then increase quality of life? So we want to start from the other way around, from the needs and not from, say, the technology. So in the discussions we had with the municipality of Eindhoven, we felt that we had to start first to build a vision in what kind of city do we want to be, and then define our steps, how to reach that in a roadmap. So back in 2012, we made a vision which was broader than public lighting alone, because at that point it was already clear that smart city was also something to include, and that we also look into a roadmap to allow the short-term decisions the city have to make to integrate longer-term developments so that they are future-proof in their decision-making. The approach we used is this co-creative approach where we first make together with stakeholders a vision on how you want the city to be, then use also the stakeholders to plan a route to achieve the vision and translate that in a plan. And the vision that was created with the stakeholders in different sessions discussing what do we want the city to be was actually visualized by this image where we on purpose do not show technology because we see the technology as a multi-purpose grid that is like a public utility available, which is being used for services that make life of people in the city better, whether it's elderly or kids or people living there or tourists finding their way, that doesn't matter. So it focuses on how can we create added value with lighting. And that was used to actually create a roadmap. I will not go into detail on this, you can imagine. But what we did is we put our desired future scenario at the end of a timeline and asked many people what is going to happen, what kind of technology will be available, about when, so that we can use that to achieve our vision. So we asked companies, knowledge institutes, governmental organizations, everybody, like what is coming available and what is needed to achieve our vision. And that actually led also to a discussion on how are we going to build this up. This is hard to read, I see the top one. But we made this layered model where we say, on the one hand, on the, say, the bottom, you have the infrastructure, a dense network of things, which you use to connect all kinds of devices, sensors, lights, actuators, things that you need in hardware, so to say. Then there's a layer of ICT where we have the data and the software applications. And the top layer, which you can't read but is most important, is the services for the stakeholders in the city, for the citizens, for the entrepreneurs, for the visitors. So we want to see the technology only as an enabler, and we want to focus on the societal needs to design meaningful applications. So we want to, on the one hand, provide the technology as a kind of a basic infrastructure, but the innovation is supposed to take place from the needs-based. And that is quite a statement if you put it like that, because how are you going to procure as a city a system like this? So what we did is discuss, and the city itself took a strong role in there, how are we going to procure continuous innovation rather than how are we going to procure light poles and sensors and, say, the stuff that we know and that we know how to specify and we know how to buy. So in this case, the city decided to put forward 10 living labs in the city, areas where the lighting needed to be replaced anyway, and then say we do not just want to replace the lighting, we want continuous innovations in these living labs. So we want the consortia that apply for the tender, that make a bid, to really look into identifying the needs, coming up with innovative solutions that make use of this smart grid. And that is resulted in the process offered by Philips Lighting and Heijmans, who won the bid, that actually came up with a co-creation process with the residents and the local entrepreneurs in 3 phases: in needs identification, in solutions, and in the implementation and improvement. And the idea is that through involvement of all the stakeholders, we will identify things, but in the learning phase, we will also use the data, say the smartness of the system that we have. Yes, I'm almost done. The smartness of the system to learn if we really achieve what we want to achieve. And that is where Rianne is going to say how that works.